honest with you, until 2015, I had never donated to a campaign or volunteered. All I did was vote. I was apathetic. I got up off the bench because of Bernie Sanders. I donated, I volunteered, I opened my office, provided computers, phones to anybody who wanted a phone bank for Bernie Sanders. Because I believe Bernie Sanders is good for Texas and the rest of the United States. Bernie Sanders is one of those rare people I think all Texans can respect. Bernie is a man of principle. Bernie represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to elect a president who has always had the best interests of the people in his heart. He has campaigned tirelessly for health care, for social justice, for economic equality. He's fought against climate change. He's fought for social justice, and he's fought for criminal justice reform. And not just this election, not just in the last 2 to 3 years, but for decades. He has inspired hope in so many of us to remember that this is our country and we decide what kind of country it's going to be. He has asked us to think big, and we, including many of you who are here today, have responded by organizing and fighting back against the corruption and apathy that has kept the people, we the people, from realizing our nation's true capability. 4 years ago, the policies and programs Bernie suggested were referred to as silly, impossible, and no one would support. They now all enjoy a majority of support from most Americans. We did that together with the guidance and leadership of Bernie Sanders. As an employer, I want to talk a little bit about health insurance. I provide my employees one of the best plans Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas offers. It still has a $1,200 deductible. When the average family of this country can't afford a $400 economic hit, $1,200 might as well be $10,000. It is why Medicare for All is really the only option. Private health care insurance, even with providing one of the best insurance plans, as an employer still sucks. The private insurance market has failed us. And don't let people who have said Medicare for America or the public option confuse you. These programs will not lower deductibles and they will not make private insurance more affordable. The plans offered many of the Democratic nominees, including our own Beto O'Rourke, are tokens to keep you from asking for the real thing. The candidates offering Medicare for America versus Bernie's Medicare for All are protecting the donors, not the families of Texas. Lastly, before I pass the mic on to the next speaker, I want to remind you that the fight to realize our true potential here in the United States and in Texas takes courage, persistence, and most importantly, hope. We may not win the first fight or the second fight, but as Bernie Sanders said, when millions of people stand up and fight, we will win. Texas, let's work hard to elect Bernie Sanders as our nominee and make Bernie Sanders the next president of the United States.
Please welcome next, Priscilla Yavarino.
Buenas tardes, Texas! Okay, so my name is Priscilla Yavarino. I am 25 years old. I am a first-generation American, daughter of immigrants, grad student, not done yet, and lifelong Texan. And I want to talk to you all a little bit about why I support Bernie Sanders. So as Texans, we all carry a lot of pride for our state, and with good reason, right? Okay, we have so many things to be proud of. Our state produces more wind energy than any other state in the country. And one of the 6 cities in the entire nation running on 100% renewable energy is here in Texas. And then we have some things to not be so proud of, like our dependence on fracking, oil, and the countless Democrats that we have elected into office who continue to accept donations from corporations in the oil sector. In my opinion, these Democrats are not keeping true to their party values of placing our communities and our planet first, and this has gone on for far too long. I support Bernie because he is fearless in the face of the ExxonMobils of the world. He was the first candidate to bring such a bold resolution to the table, no holds barred. I support Bernie because every major platform that he issued in 2016 has crept onto the platform of every other Democrat running for president. However watered down it may be. And that speaks to his authenticity and his consistency. I support our future president, Bernie Sanders, because he recognizes that climate change is the single greatest threat facing our planet. And I know that under a President Bernie Sanders, the Green New Deal would no longer be a resolution. It will be the pathway for the future of our country. And just one more thing before I leave, I want to tell you. 5 minutes before I came onto this stage, I got a message from Team Bernie, and I donated another $27, so as soon as I'm done, please do the same.
Please welcome next, Daniel Garcia Rodriguez.
Funky Town, Fort Worth, 817, let's hear it! No. Funky Town, Fort Worth, let's hear it! The last time I saw this many people in downtown Fort Worth was when we organized a day of action to demand that our city leaders stand up against State Senate Bill 4. A dehumanizing, anti-immigrant piece of legislation that gave local law enforcement the power to ask individuals their immigration status. The city of Fort Worth, a majority POC city, and the 5th largest city in Texas and one of the fastest, largest growing cities in the U.S. because of the labor of diverse communities in the city, became the only major city in Texas not to join the lawsuit against that hateful piece of legislation. Fort Worth also lands at the bottom of the list in voter turnout, making it 49 out of the 50 largest cities in local turnout, with only 6% of our eligible voters voting and deciding who their local elected leaders are. And also reminder, elections are going on right now in Fort Worth. We still have our black and brown sisters and brothers being attacked by local police, in particular our black and brown women. So to Miss Jacqueline Craig and Dorothy Morris, you and your struggle for justice is not forgotten. So why do I mention these things? It's because our city still has a living form of Jim Crow that preserves racial injustice, and it's called the Fort Worth Way, where decisions are made behind closed doors by an exclusive few who hold power in this city and alienate, disregard, and undermine the sentiments, issues, and values of communities of color. This new Jim Crow system is perpetuated by some of our local leaders, especially those who have a close relationship with our current administration and claim that this is a welcoming city when we know that it's not. An administration that has ripped children away from their parents, strengthened the deportation machine, and further created a climate of fear and division with unapologetic, bigoted rhetoric against our most vulnerable communities. Sisters and brothers, we have an opportunity to change the course of our country by supporting and electing someone who has consistently, I say consistently, been in the front lines in the struggle for racial equality and economic equality, by fighting back against a political system that treats immigrants, people of color, women, workers, our disabled sisters and brothers, and our LGBTQIA community as second-class citizens. In the 60s, Bernie was present in the struggle of racial justice and civil rights. In the early 2000s, Bernie flew down to Immokalee and learned firsthand the problems and challenges faced by Florida farm workers and fought for their rights and their dignity. Bernie has fought against employment discrimination, stood up against unnecessary wars, called for the end on the war of drugs and also for private prisons, fought for healthcare reform, stood with workers. So to me, it's not about what you tell me, but where you've been at. Were you in the comfortable middle, or were you in the trenches like Senator Bernie Sanders has been? But the most important thing that I have gotten from Bernie was that this campaign, this fight, it's not about him. It's about us. So it will take a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-faith movement of all people to create the change needed for this city and for this country. I stand with Bernie because he acknowledges that this fight is for my family, my neighbors, my city, and every single one of us in this crowd today. We have to work collectively to advocate for justice here locally and also support someone who will without a doubt be our voice in DC. So we're about to turn it up. We're about to make some noise. I'm about to make every single one of y'all chant and make sure that we get ready and we make sure that there's some energy behind Bernie Sanders. So we're going to do a practice run. When I say Viva something, you're going to say Viva. Has anybody done that chant before? So for instance, if I say Viva United Fort Worth, you say Viva. That's it. Bet. Viva healthcare for all. Viva. Viva the fight for women's rights. Viva. Viva the fight for LGBTQ equality. Viva. Viva for criminal justice reform. Viva. Viva for comprehensive immigration reform. Viva. Viva for college for all. Viva. Viva for the fight for public education and teachers. Viva. Viva for racial justice. Viva. And Viva for the only candidate that through the years has been consistent enough to prove that he will fully be committed to the execution of all these issues that impact all of our sisters and brothers in this country that we call home. So Viva Bernie Sanders! Viva! Viva Bernie Sanders! Viva! And Viva Bernie Sanders! Viva! Thank you.
Please give a warm welcome to co-founder of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream and national co-chair of the Bernie 2020 campaign, Ben Cohen.
You guys have got a beautiful town here. I was walking around Fort Worth today and, saw all the history of the cattle drives and the stagecoaches, and, for a guy from Vermont, that's pretty cool. And then I was in Sundance Park, and man, I saw those huge umbrellas opening up, and close my eyes and you hear those fountains, you feel like you're by the ocean. Some beautiful stuff going on here, and an amazing crowd. What I also picked up the Fort Worth Weekly and learned that you guys have an election coming up, and the idea that only 6% of the people vote makes it incredibly easy for those of us who want to support Deborah Peoples for mayor to get out there and vote for her and get her in, get her elected. Because you think of it as practice for getting Bernie elected. I want to say that one of the best things about getting Bernie elected is that I become the minister of ice cream. And when I am the minister of ice cream, I guarantee a pint in every freezer and a sundae in every bowl. Before Bernie, I used to be the most famous guy from Vermont. So I am so incredibly proud and happy to turn that mantle over to Bernie and become his ice cream is good, but a president of the United States that truly believes in justice in all its flavors, that is euphoric. So that's why I'm here on the campaign trail here in Fort Worth instead of being back home in Vermont just kind of licking ice cream. But euphoria is a high-minded word. But the reason that Bernie will be able to transform Washington is that he's down to earth. He has a vision, and it's pretty simple. What would our country be like if it was really run for the benefit of regular, everyday people? And the thing that makes Bernie special amongst all the other candidates is that he knows what he's up against. He has no delusions. He has the experience in the trenches, in the cesspool of what is our political system today, and that will enable him, with the help of all of us, to successfully flush the crap down the drain. He's been in Congress, in the House and the Senate for 30 years. He knows how it works. You know, I don't see Bernie as a politician in the usual sense of the word. He is a fighter for justice, social, racial, and economic, and he uses politics as a means to that end. You know, before Bernie, I never had a mayor that represented my values, or a congressman, or a senator. And man, it just feels so good. So I just want to give you a taste of what's gotten me so excited about now seeing this guy in the White House. For the last 40 years, I've been Bernie's constituent. First in Burlington, Vermont, when he was mayor, and I've seen how steadfast and determined he is. For these last 4 decades, he's worked consistently to improve the lives of regular, everyday people and those who are oppressed. In 1980, when Ben & Jerry's was first starting out, Bernie won an improbable victory over an establishment, incumbent, party machine, old crony, old boys network politician, and he became mayor of Burlington. His first act as mayor was to shut down plans for expensive condominiums that would have privatized the shore of Lake Champlain, and instead he turned the land into a park open to everybody. When he became my congressman, he personally took busloads of senior citizens over the border into Canada so they could buy prescription drugs at decent prices. He co-founded the Progressive Caucus, which has now become the biggest values-based caucus in the House of Representatives. He voted against NAFTA before voting against NAFTA was cool. He voted against going to war in Iraq twice. Then in 2007, he defeated the richest man in Vermont to become my senator. As senator, he worked with conservatives to force the first ever audit of the Federal Reserve, which revealed trillions of dollars in near zero interest loans to big banks and multiple conflicts of interest. Then he led a successful effort to stop the so-called chain CPI, which would have reduced benefit payments to Social Security recipients and disabled veterans. Last September, Bernie introduced the Stop Bezos Act. That stands for Stop Bad Employers by Zeroing Out Subsidies. It requires large employers that are paying lousy wages to reimburse the government for the food stamps and the Medicaid that their employees need to get by. A month later, Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour. And now, in this highly divided, highly politicized environment, it was Bernie who was able to unite Republicans and Democrats to pass a resolution calling for the United States to get out of the war in Yemen. You know, when Bernie ran for president the first time, and he said he wouldn't take any big money, I thought that was a mistake, that he'd never raise enough money for his campaign. Then I came to understand it. He knew that if there weren't enough people willing to pony up small donations, that he didn't want to become president, because then he wouldn't have the army of people that he would need once we elect him president in order to push his agenda through. So, you know, I've known the guy for 40 years. What do I think about Bernie, the man? Well, he's always been the same. He never wavers. He has a clear vision for how to make America kind again. And he continually comes up with innovative ways to do it. He's not a fancy game. No, he's not a fancy guy. He's pretty down home, no airs, and I like his hairstyle. That never changes either. He doesn't go with the trends, he sets the trends. Small donor-funded campaigns, universal health care, publicly funded colleges and universities. Bernie, the trendsetter, who knew? He's already leading the country. Just look at all the other candidates that are following him. Thank you very much.
Please welcome next, co-founder of 2020 campaign, Senator Nina Turner.
In there, is that all right? Man, what can we say about Ben Cohen? Ice cream in every freezer. Hello, we want to make him deliver that. Man, well, he is one of four. There are four of us, four fantastic co-chairs, including myself. I got to give a shout out to my sister, the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, Mayor Carmen Cruz. A shout out to my brother from the great state of California, Congressman Ro Khanna. We make up the four national co-chairs of this campaign. I just got to say something. All the speakers that have come before me, the band, Jesse, Dante with the national anthem, Brother Carl calling out some folks over they half-measured Medicare for all, Sister Priscilla reminding us that Senator Bernie Sanders is the only candidate, and Brother Daniel Garcia laying it down. Hashtag tangibles. I want everybody with a smartphone that when you tell the world about this event, Fort Worth, not only hashtag Bernie 2020, but hashtag tangibles. Every single speaker who has spoken before us this afternoon had a stream that was common, and that is Senator Bernie Sanders is consistent. And that consistency means something. You know, people want to strip him of his history. And I don't know in what world. And I'm going to say this, Fort Worth, because this happened in Houston, and I want people to hear me clearly. I don't know in what world, when you start to tell people about your lived experience, and all of us have lived experiences, all of us have a story to tell, but in what world, when you sitting on the stage telling folks about your history, and you mention the fact that you were on the march on Washington with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Fort Worth, in what world do people do that? That happened to Senator Sanders yesterday, and I'm calling it out. In what world? You don't boo folks for that. And I don't care if it was somebody who I didn't care about their policies. If they stood up with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other heroes and sheroes, we need to shout that out. That's it. Hashtag tangibles. And you know what, Fort Worth? It's not even only that. Senator Bernie Sanders, when he was in Congress, and Congresswoman Maxine Waters was leading the charge against redlining and loan discrimination, Senator Sanders was right there by her side, voting every step of the way to stand up for people who have been exploited by a system that is rigged. Hashtag tangible. This man has been on picket lines, not just in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, but he has been on the picket line with Verizon workers, picket line with Marriott workers. Hashtag tangibles. And when he stands up and he talks about a $15 an hour minimum wage, even though he didn't win the Democratic primary, he didn't stop working for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. Hashtag tangible. So I dare anybody, and I'll put our senator up head to head with anybody. He is the most consistent champion, standing up for the everyday people of this country, whether we knew it or not. Hashtag tangible. And all of us represent the mosaic of humanity. And it is sad, and dare I say sad as hell. I'm going to keep it PG because I want to say something else. Sad as a mofo. That people would try to divide us. Don't think that the senator doesn't understand, and he talks about all the time the disparities within the disparities. That he understands that there are working class whites in this country who suffer. He understands that there are working class blacks and Latinos and Asian and Native American, and we suffer in this country. He gets it. Hashtag tangibles. His history does matter. And to my millennial sisters and brothers, when he was around your age at the University of Chicago, he stood up against housing discrimination in Chicago. Hashtag tangibles. And he was chained to a black woman doing it. Hashtag tangible. Oh no. No, a sister feeling some kind of way today. Because we must never let anybody try to take away somebody's record just because they don't agree with his policies and just because they might not want to see him become president of the United States of America, but millions of people do. Hashtag tangible. Hashtag tangibles. I double dare somebody. His father was an immigrant from Poland. And Fort Worth, I want you to feel this thing. I need you to wrap your mind around this. His father, at the age of 17 years old, trying to make it to this country to escape the Holocaust. Hashtag tangibles. Senator Sanders, has a lived experience. So when our immigrant sisters and brothers from all walks of life try to get to this country and do the right thing and go through the right vehicles to have a better life, Senator Sanders understands from lived experience. Hashtag tangible. Oh no, a sister feeling some kind of way today. And I just gotta put this out here, that you need to ignore the headlines that are trying to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And I mean that. This system understands that when Senator Bernie Sanders becomes the next president of the United States of America, he won't sell you out. That you are his only special interest. You and you and you and you. Oh no. A sister feeling some kind of way today. Because right is right and wrong is wrong. So I'm going to tell you this. My grandmother used to say that you can, well, my grandmother used to say a lot of stuff, but my grandmother used to say that you can show folks better than you can tell them. And Fort Worth, we need you to show folks through your works and through your deeds that you are standing with, in the words of Dr. Cornel West, a long-distance runner for justice. Hashtag tangibles. Senator Sanders was a first-generation college graduate. Some of you here this afternoon can relate to that. He and his brother and his family lived in rent-control housing in Brooklyn, New York. So as he fights for housing that is affordable for the working poor and the barely middle class, hashtag tangible, he get it, he gets it. So these policies, Fort Worth, are in his soul. I like to say that Senator Bernie Sanders has heart-soul agreement, and we can't say that about everybody. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to show folks better than we can tell them. Now, on Saturday, we have hundreds of thousands. We have 1 million folks across this country, all around the world, dare I say, who have signed up to help Senator Sanders become the next president of the United States of America. We have house parties on Saturday. And sisters and brothers, I need you to do this because, see, we got to put some sweat equity behind this thing. If you have not signed up for one of those house parties, I need you to do that. Host a house party. Bring your friends, bring your family members, bring a frenemy or two, but bring some folks with you, because we are going to win this thing by the weight and the might of the people, not me, us. Oh no, we don't do this. So let the record reflect that we got all the tangibles that we need. In terms of somebody that is not going to kowtow to a system that is designed to keep working class and barely middle class people from all walks of life down. Senator Sanders is not going to kowtow to a system that allows CEOs of companies to make multi-millions of dollars and then hesitate to pay their people a living wage. He's not going to relent. No, we got the tangible. So for folks who are looking for a presidential candidate, there is only one, and his name is Bernard Sanders. So, in my clothes, they didn't give a sister a coldest mic today. I'm stuck. But I'm, Fort Worth, I just want to thank you. Can I just say thank you, Fort Worth? I want to thank you for understanding the moment that we're in. And the change that we are seeking, the change that Senator Sanders believes in and that he has been fighting for all of his life, starting at a very young age to this moment, is not going to happen because the system says, oh, by the way, we've been doing the wrong thing. We've been exploiting working class people. No, it's going to happen because we're going to rise up. Senator can't do it alone. So we need you.
I'm bringing two champions with me as I close this thing out. One is Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. And she said these words, what the people want is simple, very simple. They want an America as good as its promise. It is not too much to ask for clean water, clean food, clean air. It's not too much to ask that we have a social contract one to another, and that social contract is about ensuring that we all have health care, not access to it, but that we have health care in this country. It's not too much to ask to say that women deserve their whole damn dollar. Ladies, say whole damn dollar. It's not too much to ask to ratify the ERA. Ladies, say ERA. It's not too much to ask that we have a college and higher education system, whether it's on the trade side or the college side, that does not put people in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. It's not too much to ask. Hashtag tangibles. And then my last historic figure that I got to bring in the room is President Teddy Roosevelt. And he said these words. He said, this country will not be a good place for any of us to live unless we make it a good country for all of us to live. That's what we're going for. Put my notes back in my purse. That's what we're going for. So sisters and brothers in Fort Worth, can I get you to raise one hand for yourself and one hand for somebody else? And with these hands, we will have Medicare for all. With these hands, we will have college and trade school for all. With these hands, we will increase the minimum wage. With these hands, we will take care of Mother Earth. With these hands, we will restore our standing in the world. With these hands, we will have compassion and mercy and empathy on our sisters and brothers from all walks of life. With these hands, we will reform a criminal justice system that is rotten to the core. With these hands, we will restore voting rights. And with these hands, we will have transcendence in America and elect Bernie Sanders, the next president of the United States of America.
Let me thank Jessie Fry and her band, great music. Let me thank Dante Morellis. Thank you very much, Dante, for singing the national anthem. Let me thank Carl Tierney for his remarks. Let me thank Priscilla Yeverino for her remarks. Let me thank David Garcia Rodriguez for his remarks. And let me thank an old friend who I think we're going to make Secretary of the Commerce. Make sure that everybody has a pint of Ben & Jerry's in their freezer. Thank Ben Cohen. And let me thank Sister Nina Turnip. Now, I love Nina, but the only problem with Nina is I got to follow her. And that's a pretty hard thing to do. But I want you to know but over the last several years, Nina Turner has been running all over this country, doing the most important work that any American can do. And that is demanding that young people, working people, people of all colors, stand up and fight for their rights. Thank you, Nina Turner. And on this beautiful day, see, I'm not used to the sunshine, I come from Vermont. But on this beautiful day, I want to thank all of you for coming out to be part of a political revolution. And what this political revolution is about, and I use those words advisedly, is not just winning the Democratic nomination for president. It is not just defeating the most dangerous president in the history of our country, Donald Trump. But this campaign is about something more than that. It is about understanding that if we stand together, black and white and Latino and Native American and Asian American, if we stand together as gay and straight, native born and immigrant, if we stand together and keep our eyes on the prize, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. And I want to say that yesterday we had a great rally in Houston, and I'm here in Fort Worth for one simple reason, and that is that I believe we can and will defeat Donald Trump here in Texas. And let me tell you, let me tell you why I think we are going to defeat Trump here, and we're going to beat him all over this country. And that is that the American people, including people here in Texas who voted for Trump, understand increasingly that he is a pathological liar and a fraud. Now, I understand why people voted for Trump. People are hurting, and Trump said, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take on the establishment. I'm going to stand up for working people. Well, Trump has told many, many lies since he ran for president, but the biggest lie that he told was that he was going to stand up for the working class of this country. A profound and ugly lie. So I say to President Trump, you don't stand up for the working class of this country when you tell them during a campaign you're going to provide health care to everybody. Remember that? Well, he didn't provide health care to everybody. In fact, he tried to throw 32 million Americans off of the health care they already have. Trump said, hey, I'm a different type of Republican. I'm not going to cut Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Lie. The budget that he brought forth called for $1.5 trillion cut in Medicaid, $845 billion in Medicare, and billions and billions of dollars in cuts in Social Security. And you're not standing up for working families when you also propose massive cuts to education, housing, and every other program that working families need. Donald Trump, when he ran for president, he came here to Texas, he said, I'm going to pass a tax bill. It's not going to benefit the wealthy, it'll work for the working families. Lie! Trump's tax bill gave 83% of its benefits over a 10-year period to the top 1%. Anybody here happen to know how much Amazon paid in taxes last year? Zero. Amazon made $11 billion in profits last year, owned by the wealthiest man in America, paid zero in federal taxes. That is not President Trump standing up for working families. But our campaign is not just about Donald Trump. Our campaign is about creating an economy and creating a government that works for all, not just the 1%. And today, on this beautiful, beautiful day, I want to tell you, and I want to welcome you to a campaign which says with confidence, with optimism, and with love that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, will not be hatred, will not be lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, will not be sexism, will not be homophobia, will not be xenophobia, will not be religious bigotry. Brothers and sisters, we are going to end those ugly anti-American sentiments, and we're going to end them soon. I'll tell you what the principles of our government will be. Our government will be based on the principles of justice, economic justice, racial justice, social justice, and environmental justice. And let me tell you what justice means. And not a whole lot of candidates talk about it. You don't hear about it in the Congress. You don't see it much on TV. But that is that we are going to end the trend in this country toward an oligarchic form of government. A government in which we have more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth, and it is worse here in America today than at any time since the 1920s. Now, we're going to talk about that issue, and we're going to talk about the obscenity of 3 families in America, 1, 2, 3, owning more wealth than the bottom half of America, 160 million people. Does that sound like the America that we want? In America today, the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. At the same time, as 20% of our children live in poverty, at the same time as veterans who put their lives on the line to defend us sleep out on street corners all across this country, and at the same time as 34 million Americans have no health insurance. Justice is not about nearly 20% of people in Texas under 65 not having health insurance while most of them are working. Justice and the fight for justice means we will not accept an economy in which 46% of all new income goes to the top 1%, while people in Texas and Vermont are working 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table, and half of our country, half of our people are working paycheck to paycheck. Justice means that we are sick and tired of an economy in which the CEOs of large corporations now make 300 times what their workers are earning. And meanwhile, while the very, very rich get richer and enjoy Trump's, did I say chumps? Trump's tax breaks, 500,000 fellow Americans are sleeping out on the streets, and so many of our fellow Americans are living in despair, have given up hope that life expectancy in America is actually going down. Justice means that we will not allow 25 hedge fund managers to make double the amount of money than all of the kindergarten teachers in this country. And justice means that we are going to end the institutional racism that exists all over this country. So in the midst of all of the big disparities, we also have racial disparities. We have white families owning 10 times the wealth of black families. We have infant mortality rates in the black community 2.5 times higher than in the white communities. We have black businesses who cannot get the loans they need to expand. We are going to change that, and we are going to lead the effort to end racism and discrimination in the United States of America. And I want to say a word to the young people who are here and the young people of this country. You are the most progressive generation in the history of the United States of America. I am proud of you, and you should be proud of yourselves. You are the most anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobic generation in the history of this country. But there's something else. There's something else about the young generation, and that is, if we do not turn this economy around, for the first time in the modern history of our nation, your generation will have a lower standard of living than your parents. Now, there's something weird about that. We're seeing an explosion of technology. We're seeing an explosion in worker productivity, and yet everything being equal, the younger generation will have less income, they'll have more debt, they'll be less likely to afford a home. Well, I don't believe in downward mobility. I've got 7 grandchildren. I believe in upward mobility. And we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, including our younger generation. But brothers and sisters, this campaign and our presidency is not just about economic justice. It is about political justice as well. Now, to my mind, when I talk about democracy, I'm talking about one person, one vote, not about billionaires buying elections. So, brothers and sisters, we are going to end a corrupt political system which allows the very rich to get richer because of their political influence. We are going to overturn Citizens United. And we are going to move toward public funding of elections. And I'll tell you something else. You know, the other day I was roundly criticized for saying something that I think is common sense. And I think that every American citizen, because of their citizenship, should have the right to vote, even if they're in jail. I think the right to vote is what being an American citizen is about. And if you commit a terrible crime, you're going to pay the price. But that does not mean that your right to participate in our democracy is taken away from you. And I was roundly criticized by this, but you know what? Once you begin taking away somebody's right to vote, you're moving down a slippery slope. You committed a crime, you can't vote. You're poor, you can't vote. Remember 100 years ago, women in America didn't have the right to vote. Remember 70 years ago, our African American brothers and sisters had to put their lives on the line to get the right to vote. Remember the poll taxes all across this country denying poor people the right to vote. And what we are seeing now, and make no mistake about it, this is what Trump is about, and this is what Republican cowardly governors all over America are about. You see, these guys don't have the guts to run on their principles. They don't go before the American people and say, hey, I'm a proud Republican. I'm going to cut your Social Security. I'm going to cut your Medicare. I'm going to cut Medicaid, and I'm going to give tax breaks to billionaires. That is not an ad you're going to see on TV. But what they will do, whether it is in Florida right now, people in Florida voted by over 60% to allow felons, people who served their time, to vote. And the Florida legislature is trying to rescind what the people did. I came from New Hampshire the other day. They are working overtime to make it harder for young people to vote. In the state of Georgia, an election was stolen because people did not have the right to vote and they were denied access to the polling place. So what we believe, unlike our Republican friends, we are not afraid of our ideas. We think that people support our agenda. We don't have to suppress the vote. In fact, we want more people to participate in the political process. So our view on voting rights is very simple. And that is, if you're an American citizen and you're 18 years of age, you have the right to vote. End of discussion. Now, what this campaign is about is not only bringing forth an agenda that works for working people, but it is also about a political revolution which understands a very profound point, which is encapsulated in our message of not me, but us. And that is, Nina Turner made this point, if we want legislation to protect working families, we're going to have to stand up and fight against some of the most powerful special interests in the world. The greed of corporate America and Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the military-industrial complex and the fossil fuel industry is such that no president can do it alone. We're in this together. And when we talk about a political revolution, it means that in this unprecedented moment in American history, we all need to act in an unprecedented way. That means, this is what it means. It means going out and talking to your friends, even if they don't agree with you. It means getting people registered to vote. You know, we got a couple of thousand people here. If each one of you registers 3 people, that makes 6,000 people registered to vote. And the reason we need to do that, the reason that we need to put together an unprecedented grassroots campaign is that I know the day after the inauguration, we'll have all of these special interests uniting, trying to prevent us from doing what the American people want. But this is what I also know. The 1% has unlimited wealth, and they have a hell of a lot of power. And I may not be a prize-winning mathematician, but I do know that 99% is a bigger number than 1%. So let me just tell you a little bit about what a progressive agenda means. It means that we are going to tell the private insurance companies, whether they like it or not, that the United States of America is going to join every other major country on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right, not a privilege. Tens of thousands of people in America are dying every year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. People are going bankrupt when they go into a hospital. And at the end of all of that, we end up spending twice as much per capita on health care as do the people of any other nation. The goal of health care must be to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way, not tens of billions of dollars in profits for the insurance companies and outrageous compensation packages for their CEOs. Listen to this. Listen to this. In 2017, the top 65 CEOs, healthcare CEOs, made $1.7 billion in compensation. CEO of Aetna managed to get a $500 million bonus for putting together a merger between Aetna and CVS, which will raise health care costs in America. $500 million to one guy. Well, we have a different idea about health care. Health care is not about profits for insurance companies and drug companies. Health care means quality care to every man, woman, and child, guaranteed as a right of citizenship. There was an article in the paper today. The insurance companies and the drug companies are going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it'll be much more than that, trying to defeat Medicare for all. But if we stand together, we're going to win that important fight. Brothers and sisters, when we ask ourselves why the middle class is shrinking, it has everything to do with the fact that millions of our people are working for starvation wages. And we're sick and tired of an economy in which people have to work 2 or 3 jobs at $8, $9, $10 an hour. Our job is to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. This is the United States of America. We should not have an infrastructure, roads and bridges and water systems and wastewater plants and rail, which is crumbling before our eyes. We're going to invest $1 trillion to rebuild that infrastructure, and in the process, we're going to create up to 15 million good-paying jobs, and many of them are going to be union jobs. Four years ago, when I was here in Texas, I proposed what I didn't think was a terribly radical idea, but some did. And I said that in a competitive global economy, we have got to make sure that all of our people, regardless of their income, can get a higher education. And that means college for some, it means trade school for others. A lot of good jobs out there, being a carpenter, a sheet metal worker, or a plumber. And we have got to make sure that our young people get that training. And what I said 4 years ago seemed like a radical idea, that I said we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free and substantially reduce student debt in this country. Take a step back and think outside of the box. How insane it is that millions of people in this country are $40, $50, $100,000 in debt. For what crime did they commit? For trying to get a decent education and make it into the middle class. We're going to reduce that debt very substantially. And today, and I know what state I am in, we are going to take on Trump and the fossil fuel industry. The American people and the people of Texas understand that climate change is not a hoax, but is a massive threat to our country and, in fact, to the entire world. Now, Trump may not understand it, but the scientists do. And what they are telling us is that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in America and around the world. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our kids and our grandchildren. And that means we're going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies. And when we do that, we understand that the workers in the fossil fuel industry, they're not our enemy. Climate change is our enemy, and we're going to protect those workers in a transition to other jobs. And today we say to the prison industrial complex that we are tired of having more people in jail than any other major country on earth, and that we are going to fight and pass real criminal justice reform. Instead of spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans, what we are going to do is invest in our young people in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, we're talking about ending private prisons and private detention centers. People should not be making money locking up fellow Americans. And when we are talking about criminal justice reform, we're talking about ending the so-called war on drugs. Too many lives have been destroyed because people have been arrested, got criminal records for the possession of marijuana. Now, 4 years ago, when I talked about legalizing marijuana or decriminalizing marijuana, was seen to be a radical idea. Ain't so radical an idea anymore. State after state after state are decriminalizing or legalizing marijuana, and some communities are doing the right thing and expunging the records of people who were arrested for possession of marijuana. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, We are talking about ending the absurdity of hundreds of thousands of people in jail today because they are too poor to afford bail. Now, we're going to end that cash bail system. And we're talking about police department reform as well. Most police officers work hard doing a very, very difficult job. But they need the training to understand that lethal force is the last response, not the first response. And today we say that we are sick and tired of seeing undocumented immigrants in this country being demonized. You know, that's what demagogues always do. They always find the minority and they pick on that minority. And we are sick and tired of that. So our view is, instead of demonizing undocumented immigrants, we believe in comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. We are going to provide legal status to the 1.8 million young people in the DACA program. And we're going to develop a humane border policy for those who seek asylum. America is not and must never be a nation in which we snatch babies from the arms of their mothers. And today we say to the very powerful military-industrial complex, we want a strong defense, but we do not have to spend more money on the military than the next 10 nations combined. We are going to invest in affordable housing. We're going to invest in public education. We're going to invest in rebuilding our infrastructure. We are not going to invest in never-ending wars. And today, when people ask me, they say, well, Bernie, you got all these great ideas. You want to rebuild the infrastructure. You want to provide free tuition at public colleges and universities. You want to reduce student debt. You want to address the crisis in poverty and homelessness. How are you going to pay for that? And I will tell you how. Today, we say to the top 1% and profitable large corporations, you will start paying your fair share of taxes. And to those billionaires and millionaires who enjoyed Trump's tax breaks, we're going to rescind those tax breaks and put that into the needs of ordinary people. What makes this campaign unique is that I'm not here telling you, vote for Bernie Sanders, I can do it all. That's just not the truth. The only way we defeat the powerful special interests, the only way we get health care for all, the only way we lower the outrageous price of prescription drugs, the only way we make public colleges and universities tuition free, the only way we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure is when we have a political revolution. Let me tell you what it means. This is not complicated. Right now in America, we have one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. If we want a political revolution, we've got to reach out to our friends, our neighbors, and our co-workers. We have to explain to them that they do not have the luxury of not participating in the political process. And if one of your friends tells you they can't make it on $10 an hour, or they tell you that they're sick and tired of spending 50% of their income in housing, or they're worried about their kids, or they can't afford a car or a house, You tell them that if they want real change, they're not going to moan and groan and complain. They got to stand up and fight back. Now, we're going to win this election. We're going to win this election not because we're raising huge amounts of money for millionaires and billionaires. Ain't the case. In fact, I think our average campaign contribution is actually sinking. Used to be $27, now we're down to $20. But we are going to win because over 500,000 people have already made contributions. We're going to win because more than 1 million people have volunteered to work on this campaign. And we're going to win because the American people are looking out around them. And they're worried about the future of their kids. They're worried about their parents not being able to make it on $12,000 a year Social Security. They're worried about climate change. They're worried about not being able to afford health care, not being able to afford child care. People are looking around them, and they're saying, in this great country, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we can do a hell of a lot better. So, brothers and sisters, this is what I believe. If we don't allow Trump and his friends to divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our religion or our sexual orientation, if we come together as Americans, if we are prepared to revitalize American democracy, if we are prepared to fight for justice, brothers and sisters, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Let's go out and do it. Thank you all very much.
All I hear is a lot of rhetoric, a bunch of sellouts still trying to be the president, lining up their pockets with their Wall Street money. Don't you worry about the swag. Matter of fact, you can put it on my tab. We counting every vote, they think they got it in the bag. $27 and they still getting